Anyway, thanks for coming out. I know this is your second town hall out here with the commissioner in the span of 7 days since Tal front ran me and scheduled one last week after mine was scheduled. But I'm glad he did. I mean, I'm glad that you all finally have a commissioner out here on the island and District 3 in general that is going to listen to you. I worked hard to help Tal win because I think he's going to represent you well. To backtrack, in case you don't know, my name is George Kruse. I'm the at-large commissioner, or one of the two at-large commissioners. So I also represent you, and I've been doing my best to represent Anna Marie Island and everyone out here in District 3 while you were without proper representation for quite some time.
4 years.
And for 4 years, okay.
Yeah.
So, as with all my town halls, I go out every month and do a different town hall in a different library, because the library in every district. And since I'm at large, I try to make sure everyone has an opportunity to come speak with me at least a couple of times a year, right where they are. You're more than welcome to come to Palmetto next month and Rocky Bluff the month after that. Please, by all means, follow me around if you want. But I want to make sure I can come out and see you at least a couple of times a year. So usually twice a year I'm in this room. So today, I'm just here to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. I know some commissioners like to come out and give a presentation, talk a little bit about what's going on. I don't typically do that. My town halls usually run at least 2 hours without me talking about anything ahead of time, because there's things you care about that I don't know about, or things that are more important to you right now. And I want to make sure we dig into those rather than me just telling you what I want you to hear. So today we did, just to give you something, even though I said I wasn't, we did have an all-day work session. That's why this is the nicest you'll ever see me dressed for a town hall, even with the jacket back on. We talked about the comprehensive plan and some plans for future growth and how we're going to handle things. We've been working on that rewrite for 2 years. So all morning we had that. And this afternoon we talked about stormwater and some of the issues associated with the flooding and how we're going to handle that. So we've had that all day. We just got done about an hour ago. And then I wanted to come out here and speak to all of you. So I'm not going to continue talking and telling you anything. I want to hear from you. All my town halls, I'm here to answer any question you have or listen to any concerns you have. My aide's back there, Dana. She can take your contact information if you want to provide it. She'll keep track of any questions you may have. I'll look into them and I'll get back to you. I always do. So I will just open this up from the start for any questions, comments, concerns, anything you have. I will do my best to answer. That's fine.
First of all, I think you're doing a great job as the new chairman of Manatee County. It's a complete change of emotion when I'm sitting in that room. And I like the way you're conducting the meetings. You're a lot more open and flexible in terms of listening to citizen comments. And, you're not as intense in terms of enforcing rules, if you will, that citizens sitting in this, I think citizens sitting in the building feel much more comfortable addressing you than previous groups. I do have one concern though, and that is the pollution levels in North Palmasola, North Palmasola Bay. Suncoast Waterkeepers just completed a 12-month study of bacterial levels. There's different things are being measured in North Palmasola Bay, but one of them that's being measured by Suncoast Waterkeepers is the bacteria levels. And for 10 of the past 12 months, bacteria in North Palmasola Bay has made that body of water unsafe to use. Bacteria levels above 71 per 100 milliliters of water, 10 out of the last 12 months. And the reading that was taken on February 5th was 120. So it's an ongoing problem. I know there's a lift station on the north side of North Palmasola Bay. I don't know if that's that's contributing to it. I really don't know. But I do know that there's horse companies operating up and down there just about every day of the week in good weather. And some of that bacteria was identified as horse DNA in a study that Suncoast Waterkeepers did. It was actually published, I think, in the Sun or the Islander, April or May of last year. Some of that bacteria in there is horse DNA. And, I pick up litter on the causeway on a regular basis. And, I'm constantly seeing poop that's being scooped up on the beach because one of the companies walks these horses along the shoreline, up and down, and then there's somebody behind them. It's kind of like a circus or a parade, they're scooping up the poop. DOT, about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, put in a new revetment on the roadway, which reduced the difference between the road height and the parking area. And so they had graded the entire parking area on that north side. And the odor from the horses had been removed. And then within 2 days of them getting that all graded and renewed, it started to smell like a barn again. They were already out there trashing out the parking area and, doing what horses do in that area. So that's my concern.
Okay. I don't really have an answer for you. I know we've been, for 4 straight years, I've been dealing with this. We've got that's a situation where there's multiple different, you got DOT involved in some cases, you got City of Bradenton involved, you got Manatee County involved. There's never been a resolution. This has been going on for a decade and a half, since way before I got here. We've been getting messages about this, about the horses. There's pro-horse people, anti-horse people. The numbers go up, the numbers go down in North Palmasola Bay. I'll look into it. You provided me the information. I'll reach out to Abby and her team and try to dig in a little bit more and get a little bit more clarity on exactly where those numbers are and what they interpret. And I'll once again have a conversation with Charlie Bishop and Gene Brown. We have a joint work session with City of Bradenton Friday morning. So I'll mention that to Gene as well and see kind of what City of Bradenton is doing. We're scheduling a work session. I think we're scheduled on Palms Beach as well, with all, not only all 6 municipalities one at a time, but also with the school board and with Sarasota County Commission to get with everybody one by one and make sure we're working with everybody to make sure we can provide as best we can for Manatee County, and that includes water quality. And so there'll be an opportunity with at least 2 of the 3 groups involved with the causeway to have a discussion about that. But so I'll reach out to Gene, I'll reach out to Abby tomorrow before that so I can get a little bit more clarity from her.
On the same topic, there's also a safety concern because over the past 2 weeks, the horses have gotten loose twice and run into traffic. 7 of them were running down Manatee Avenue on one of the days. The video is there on that, and I understand that the weekend after, the fire department, West Manatee, had to come out and help them corral some more horses. So besides the accidents that are done from people that are stopping and going slow and looking at the horses and rear-ending people, it's like that's shouldn't be the way our gateway looks to the beach.
Yes.
I'm going to add to that. We didn't used to
I
have.
watched some appellate meeting on it, and it was all permits and everything.
I know.
I did not expect horses to be in
And don't feel you have to answer me on the spot, because I know this is a lot of City of Bradenton and FDOT. This is not a county thing, but if you could advocate for us of what's happening to the traffic coming on and off the island because of the commercial use that's happened at the causeway. You've got probably 5 or 6 jet ski rentals with their signs, their flags out there waving. And I know at one time Mayor Brown said, that's because you kicked them off Holmes Beach. We've never had jet ski rentals on Holmes Beach. And I said, no, we've never had jet ski rentals on the beach. I don't know why you're blaming Holmes Beach for the jet ski rentals that have now popped up on the causeway, but you've got at least 5 or 6 of them. And I feel sorry for all those waterfront property owners that have to listen to it, all the jet ski rentals out in the waterway, because that's become a commercial use. But it's definitely slowed down traffic, and we're having FDOT do some studies of why it takes so long to get on and off the island. And they're contributing it to what's happening at the causeway.
Okay.
So
That's the first I've heard of that. I mean, I know
yeah.
about the jet skis and the kayaks and all that, but that's the first I've
There's a
heard
new
that
pirate
DOT.
boat that just went there. This week, there's a new pirate vessel that's out there that they're taking people on pirate tours.
And then it's a new mooring.
Oh, no.
You can't judge.
And it's a new mooring area.
I've done those.
And are they, and being the fact that it's a new sailboat mooring area, are they being checked to see if they're keeping the tickets on how they're pumping their sanitary? So that's just things that are concerning to us.
I'll look into it. I mean, at the very least, I'll look into it, because we're going to be having a joint meeting, so that's a good topic of conversation. We have a joint meeting, but I'll look into it ahead of time.
Well, I was going to say, it seems that the commercial use of the causeway there happened after the state changed the law protecting businesses from local control. I mean, so that's, when you talk about the people you're going to collaborate with, certainly the state delegation would be an important group.
It would. I mean, the state recently, they look at stuff that individual municipalities are doing well, and then they're like, we're going to put a stop to that. Like, you guys are getting way too efficient with your governance, so we're going to fix that real quick. I don't. So if the state does do things like that, if somebody at some point probably complained to someone and said, hey, they're not letting me put my food truck over here, and that's DOT, and that's state, and that's not. And then they pass some sort of bill that basically allows them to do it. But again, I'll look into it. That goes back to Mayor Tidworth's comment. So let me look at the whole thing and get a better handle on exactly what is and isn't allowed for commercial. I'm assuming they're legally allowed to be there, otherwise you would just send your police out there and tell them to stop doing it. So they're clearly doing it legally. It's a matter of what's the statute that's allowing them to do so. But let me look into it first, and then I'll get back. Yeah, Mike.
As far as I know, DOT does not want to acknowledge responsibility for the problem. That, I understand that. But from what I understand, the city of Bradenton does have legal power to remove them. That's what I understand.
Like I said, we do have a meeting with City of Bradenton in 36 hours or so. 9 a.m. Friday at our 5th floor of our building. If anyone wants to come, we're going to be talking about a number of things with City of Bradenton, including affordable housing, including around Econ Park, a few things. And so I'll bring this up to Gene tomorrow. I'm going to see him tomorrow morning and see if this should be added to it as a topic to the agenda, or at least just a one-off conversation. Other questions? We done? That was fast. Yes, ma'am.
About Hurricane Market, it's still kind of sad ever since it changed hands. And I was speaking with one of the vendors who sold vegetables, and she told me that they were being charged $200 to have a stall. And so she's not going anymore. She's not going to the Ave Maria. I think that's way too much for a small vendor. So I don't know if this is something that you could be looking into, and also getting more people out there, more vendors.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to getting more people out there, and we try to advertise it. It was a shame what happened in the first place. I mean, I worked with Nancy, I worked with everyone to try to not take that. I kind of kept admonishing my board over it. I was like, why are we stealing a farmer's market from somebody to monetize it as the government? I don't know at what point in time a government's supposed to be running a farmer's market. It's not supposed to be our job, but they did, and that's in the past. Now we just need to make sure that we're honoring the vendors and making sure it becomes as successful as it used to be back before all this happened. I had never heard it was $200, but to be fair, I couldn't tell you what it was before, so I don't have a frame of reference for it. I know there's been a push to get that back out in the public. Obviously, there's been a couple of hurricanes, and then there was the renovations and things going on down in Coquina. It reopened in an inopportune time. So it's never really had the opportunity to really build up the momentum to start getting people out there anymore. But I'll talk to Molly about it and see what the plans are. I'll ask about the vendor contracts. I know it's a third party now, so I don't know what restrictions we have in terms of what they're charging, if we've capped it or not. It's not Manatee County charging $200. It's a master lease effectively to a third party who's now overseeing it. So I don't know what the restrictions are on that lease, but I'll look into that.
I didn't listen to the meeting today, and I didn't know whether or not you brought up the ban on the pet stores. I know that was something that you were going to put on the agenda, and I didn't really see whether or not it was there. So I guess my first question would be what your feelings are on revoking that ban that we so desperately need. My other question is the feelings on an advisory committee for the shelter. I know the shelter situation is kind of in limbo right now. Charlie Bishop hasn't really given us too many positives on how fast the construction is going or whether it's going. How do you feel about that?
Sure. First off, we did put it on the agenda yesterday. I think everybody in this town knows where I stand on that. I was the fourth swing vote after 8 years of Carol Whitmore trying to get that ban. In fact, I got on the board in 2020, 2021. I voted with her along with Misty and Reggie, and we passed that 4-3. 2023, after we were in court for a year, a new board came on and immediately rescinded that and got rid of the ban, which was very unfortunate because a few things, again, happened with the state between the time we passed it and then, which we could have been grandfathered into and we're no longer grandfathered in, which makes it a little tougher to pass that ban again. But I did put it back on the agenda yesterday to feel out the new commissioners, to get a sense, am I going to have 3 other votes to put the ban back in place? I'll do it right now if I can. The support did not appear to be there. Commissioner Phelps was the only one that was committed to voting with me on that. There were a few that were kind of, yeah, maybe you have to look into a little bit more, do some research. I know where you're thinking, just let that go. Commissioner Phelps was the only one who was fully in support of it. So there wasn't going to be 4 votes to move that forward if we did. So Pinellas County, not saying this is where I want to end, but it's a better solution today until we can get to a position of doing it. Pinellas County in 2022 tried to pass a ban. They were a little wavering on it, so what they did instead was they passed an ordinance that banned all future stores from opening. So they basically capped what they had today. At that point, they have 6 stores up there. We have 3. So they at least, it's not a best case scenario, but it's one I got full support on. The board fully supported because you can't argue we're shutting down a small business or putting people out of work. These are stores that don't exist. But when we passed the ban last time, there were only 2 stores. There was Petland, Bradenton, Petland, Sarasota, both in Bradenton, but called Petland, Sarasota. Now, after it got rescinded, a 3rd store opened up on Cortez. So I don't want to wait another 1 or 2 years, see a little bit of a change in the board maybe, and revisit this when there's 4 stores or 5 stores. So I at least want to cap us where we are. So I did get support from the board yesterday to have the attorney put together something substantially similar to Pinellas County to at least cap us and say these 3 stores are the only 3 that will ever be here, and maybe they'll slowly drift away. Or maybe we get a different makeup of a board that can finally do something about those stores. But at least I'm not making the situation worse. So that's where that stood, unfortunately. I honestly thought when I put it on the agenda, my question was, is it going to be 4 votes or 5? Not, is it going to be 2? So I kind of misinterpreted some things people said that I thought was a little bit more on my side than it turned out it was. As it relates to the shelter, to go to your second question, we are actively working on expanding Bishop. That's how we're shutting down Palmetto. I believe within the next couple of weeks, we're starting to put all the infrastructure and utilities in and pour the concrete. We just voted to sign the contract to order all the new kennels that are being put out there. There's about a 12-week lead time. We can't really order them because once they get delivered, we need to just drop them on the pads. We have to get the pads done. The target is, because I told staff this is what the target is we want the entirety of Palmetto 100% empty and shut down before Christmas. So I kind of put it on. I said, if it's January 2nd and there's still 1 dog in there, then I'm just going to consider this whole process a failure. I'm giving you some leeway. It should have been done 2 years ago. I'm still giving you a little bit of grace period here, but we need to get this done. We're almost done with the kennels at the jail, where we're putting 30-something kennels out of the jail, 32 kennels, 216 packs of kennels. This will allow us to alleviate the congestion at Palmetto, especially during the summer months where it gets a little harder because you have some that are stuck outside. And it will also allow certain dogs to be out there. We have a trainer already working with Sheriff Wells out there, because it also allows some of the dogs that are a little bit harder to adopt to get a little bit more social interaction. And it allows some of the lower risk inmates to be able to get outside, get some fresh air, walk the dogs, play with the dogs, get the dogs a little more acclimated to humans. So it's a win-win with the sheriff. They're fully on board. They're assisting us with that. That should be done before summer. So that's going to help pull a lot of them out. And then sometime in the fall, early winter, certainly I'm being told, in calendar year 2025, all the new kennels at Bishop will be open and Palmetto will be 100% closed down, at which point we'll probably surplus it for a nonprofit. There's a couple we're talking to, like the Friends of the Pelicans. Another one?
homeless. What's the status of the homeless initiative that supposedly is taking place out by the jail somewhere? There's no information on this anywhere. So
Because there's no information we had yet. It's a conceptual thing. There's a lot of things we're doing and focusing on with the homeless, one of which is the under one roof, which is down in District 4. Commissioner Ballard's mainly working on that. That's going to allow families, especially single mothers with kids you can't really put in a regular shelter, to have a place to go. It used to be an MSO substation. They got moved, and we're renovating that. We've got the Tunnel of the Towers. They've just been dealing with some FPL kind of stuff, which I believe now is resolved, so they can actually start moving forward. They believe they're going to be done by first quarter, maybe early second quarter of 2026. That's going to be homeless for veterans. So there's a few things we're working on from a homeless standpoint. The one you're referring to up at the jail, which I've been fundamentally against, so I'll tell you why, has to do with a bill that passed at the state level, which basically made being homeless illegal. And so they basically said, we're not going to say that you have to do anything as a county, because if they say we have to do it, then it's an unfunded mandate and they have to provide the funds. So instead they said, you don't have to do anything, but anybody can now sue us, or City of Bradenton or City of Holmes Beach, if somebody was out here. If somebody is sleeping in front of your store or in the vicinity, they're causing you a problem, you can now sue the municipality. That went into effect October 1st. So basically, they put a pain point in there to encourage and all but force cities and counties to build essentially these tent cities and these short-term accommodations, transitional type housing. The plan was up by the jail, because that's just where the land is available without displacing anything. There is another alternative now, a much better alternative that I do support. The reason I don't like the jail one, and I focus a lot on affordable housing, I focus a lot on homeless, is you can't have transitional housing if you're not transitioning people into something.
Right.
And you can't put people up at the jail. There's no transit up there. There's no employment center up there. There's no nothing up there. You're putting them there just to stay there. At no point in time is somebody to go live in a tent up by the port with no ability to get meaningful wraparound services or employment or make a few dollars to get their feet under them to move out of there. Whereas Pinellas Hope, for instance, up at St. Pete, they are right walking distance. You walk right to the corners of transit right there. You can hop on a bus and go to work with your wraparound services or go to work. You can walk right down the road and work. You can work next door to the FedEx and go to get a job. People who move in there can eventually move out of there. That's what transitional housing is. And they had the land and capacity to expand it. Now you can, when you get there, you're in a tent on the wood planks or whatever, so you're not on the ground. And then you could move up to the little cottages, like the tiny homes. And then now they had a faith-based group build actual apartments, affordable housing apartments. Now you can move, you can keep transitioning up and up and up in Pinellas Hope, and then eventually transition out. That's never going to happen if you put this thing up at the port. It's just never going to happen. You're just going to stay there. Now we're just permanently housing people in very horrible permanent conditions. So we do have a better solution for it. It's not finalized yet, so I'm not really going to go into it because I want to make sure it's done before I start talking about it in public. But there is a solution that's not out by the jail. That is a better solution. It does put you closer to transit and to employment centers, and it's much closer to what Pinellas Hope is than what the alternative was. So.
Is that going to be administered by Manatee County or private entity?
I prefer us not to administer anything. We're government, so that
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So we're working with Salvation Army on it. We're working with Turning Points on it. Working with a couple other groups on it. We've been meeting with a number of people. The lead for it is going to be MSO. Well,
That's a governmental entity.
understood. But somebody has to oversee everybody else, and so it's coming off of our plate. But I believe at last conversation, Salvation Army was kind of the lead point person on it.
The Pinellas Hope model is we're going to try to rehabilitate you and help you.
Sure.
If you wish to be rehabilitated, we will do that. And I've been up there several times. They've got a better than 50% success ratio, which I think is outstanding. But there's another group of people that don't want to be rehabilitated, and they just want to be what they are. And that group can be warehoused out of the jail, just like Pinellas County warehouses those people in Pinellas County facility. So management by a private entity.
Are you saying warehouse them in the gym? You know how expensive it is to put someone in the gym?
They've got a place up there where those people can go and sleep on a floor. But they do provide housing,
Okay, I just
shelter.
think we're fundamentally different. First off, the difference with Pinellas Hope, just to clarify it, we are being forced to do this based upon a state mandate effectively. They're not going to call it a mandate, but it is. Pinellas Hope did it altruistically out of the goodness of their heart. And it was not Pinellas County who did it. It wasn't government. It was a nonprofit.
It's a diocese.
Correct. If I had that, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Knock yourself out. Go find a church group. Go find a nonprofit. You can build the biggest, nicest shelter in the world for all I care. It's their money and it's their support. We are being forced to as government, so we have to do things under the auspices of being a government first and foremost, whereas they can do things differently because they're not government. They have a lot more flexibility to raise money and donations and bring people in. And so it's still a different animal. I'm using Pinellas Hope as an example of the structural context of what we're building, not the organizational side of it, because we are not a diocese. We're a government, and I'm using your money to do it. So there is a different level than what Pinellas Hope is. But the basic concept of putting it in a more infill location that allows people more opportunity to get out of it is what I'm referring to when I'm talking about Pinellas Hope, compared to the jail opportunity.
Understood.
Yeah. No questions? Want to talk about drift in?
Every day.
How are you not there?
I was on the phone. I guess I didn't hit star 9.
Oh, okay.
I hit 9.
You adult weren't there. We're talking about stormwater.
That's why I'm here tonight. Did anybody else watch the meeting then? No? Okay.
I watched them.
It's pretty good. I appreciate the meeting. I like the public comments. I like the presentations. And I had a couple questions, and I'll elaborate on a little bit of it. I guess I was kind of curious. First off, I thought Bearden had some good questions for the engineers, and at one point you tried to stop him. So I was kind of curious why that, because I thought he was engaging and asking really important questions that a lot of people were probably interested in. And I say that because the first presentation, the guy threw out all his credentials and everything, but then one of the first things he said was the dam release was controlled, and it wasn't. And I want to ask you, if it was controlled and you believe that, which you didn't rebuttal the guy at all or question him, there were earthen gates that were released, 3 of them. My question is, what kind of control devices on an earthen gate that would prevent the water from being reduced or stopping that flow? There isn't. I'll answer it for you. It's not controlled. It's an emergency spillway, which you guys designated the name of it. And you had a guy, whoever it was that the independent study guy? Like, did we pay that guy to do that kind of study that had no idea what he was talking about? Because, like, there wasn't a control, and it had a direct effect on the flood in that area. There's ring cameras with timestamps of when you guys released the water, and then the water rapidly rising, no one getting alerts. And you guys are having a guy out there saying that it had no impact other than the rain. The rain was the big thing.
Okay.
And it wasn't. I was there. I saw the rain all night that night. And my property right there next to the big flood was fine all night. But as soon as I heard the dam release, I went down there and it wasn't raining. I flew my drone and I had tons of video that I've shared with everybody, and it went crazy because everybody knew the reason of it. And you guys had no one saying what had happened. People almost died, and you didn't take accountability. So why did you try to stop Bearden from asking good questions? Because these guys need to be vetted. They're getting bought out by the developers, and they're making these models to fit their agenda.
Okay.
And we're like covering all these impervious services. You know what I mean? We need our wetlands. We need wherings for the water to go and to soak in. And if we don't, we're going to keep flooding with just regular rains. And when you guys release the dams.
Okay. I'll go in the order you have. The reason I stopped, first off, I didn't stop Bearden. I told him to get on point. I'm still the chair of this board. It's my job, first and foremost, to make sure meetings are run smoothly. I believe the meetings have been run smoothly, in part because I try to keep people focused on the topic. I give people a lot of leeway. I mean, go look at the public comment. I don't think a single person has only spoken 3 minutes. I let everyone run over the 3 minutes as long as they're still making a valid point. Jason hit the 10-minute mark. of that current comment, and he was still on a tangent about specific development. The questions to us were comments and questions about broad things, funding sources for stormwater, and global concepts about cleaning canals, not about one single specific thing. I understood that he was trying to get to it, and that's why I gave him 10 minutes to get to it, and he didn't. But I had 4 other people on the board and a room full of people and people on the phone. I have to respect everybody's time. I respect Jason. I respect the comments Jason was making. It's why I gave him 10 minutes to make the comment and get to the point. He didn't, and even then I didn't cut him off. I didn't go to the next person. I just asked him politely to steer back towards, for respect of everyone else on my board. It's an unfortunate part of being chair. Sometimes I have to tell somebody, you're done talking at the podium. Sometimes I have to tell someone, you're done talking on the dais. Somebody has to do that. Otherwise, some of these people just go off on random tangents all day. So there was no disrespect to him. That's why I let him keep talking. And Jason knows that. As for their study, I'm not going to be able to give you an answer because I can tell you how much engineering experience I have. 0. I didn't campaign on being an engineer. I don't claim to be an engineer or an expert on any of those things. All I can do is read studies. It was asked of us after the storms, after Debby, to conduct an independent study. We were told, oh, you're going to do some fake study and you're going to do it internally and it's all going to be live. We went out, didn't even pick it ourselves. We went out to Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, based up in Tampa, who work with 10 different counties, and we said, you pick somebody. They picked someone who doesn't live in Manatee County, has no clients in Manatee County, does not work with Medallion Homes, does not work with Neal Communities, does not work with Benderson, has no vested interest in saying anything other than what facts they came up with, and those are the facts that they concluded. I understand you and some other people are going to disagree with it. I also understood, and I think I may or may not have said it right from the dais, the problem with that study was if the study came out and said Manatee County was 100% at fault, everyone would have said that's the best study I've ever seen. If that study came out and said Manatee County is not at fault, that study's a lie. Like there was no win to the study. The only way that study was going to be validated is if it proved what people wanted it to prove, and that study said it wasn't. Whether it's true or not, again, I'm not an engineer. I'm not going out and analyzing it. This study came from who I believe to be a fully independent person with no vested interest in proving one thing or the other thing. You disagree with it. I respect you disagree with it. Me and you have had conversations about this before. I respect your intelligence and your views on this. And you've taught me a lot, and so has Dalton taught me a lot about a lot of things. And some of those I'm bringing to the table. Some of my meetings with Dalton out at Gamble Creek and places like that are things that factored into the conversations I was having today and about stormwater funds and cleaning canals and culverts. I respect it, but I also am going to honor an independent engineer who provided a study because that's the best I can go by. Is this person who's smarter than me is telling me something and I have no reason to refute it.
He said that the earthen gates were controlled like device. It's an emergency spillway. It doesn't. There's no control once that water is let loose.
I hear you.
Like, do you agree with that?
No, I hear what you're saying. I don't
know what an earthen gate is.
I do know.
Is that true or not?
That is control. I don't know if it's control.
Yes, you do. It's the dam. Like, you guys know how it's constructed.
But we also have it. We can also make an educated guess on how much water is going to come out of it when we remove one of the plugs versus removing 2 of the plugs or 5 of the plugs. If we're removing 1, we know roughly how much water is going to come. What?
There was plenty of video evidence that
Okay.
raging water was not controlled.
So I don't really, you want to disprove the entirety of a study because one bullet point on page 2 that okay.
Because his conclusion.
But the rest of the study was using math to show the physical impossibility of the water from the dam due to the time it would take to get from the dam over to Summerfield and places like that.
I'm not talking about that area. I'm talking about where the dam floodplain is.
Okay, but people down there were talking about that. That's the point. Everyone's got their accusations, but all I can do is go by a study. Right now, I'm not going to sit here and refute a study by an expert who was paid to prepare a study on an unbiased basis.
I'm asking about the earthen dam or the earthen gates.
Okay.
So, you're skipping over it. It's fine.
I'm not skipping over it. Again, I'm not an engineer for a dam. I understand how earthen dams work. I've been through the dam multiple times. I live around the corner.
Can you stop that water from flowing?
No.
And control it?
No, you cannot stop it.
Thank you. That's all I want to hear. Because that's what the engineer you guys hired said. My point.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to do.
Okay.
This is a silly question, but why do they wait until it overflows to let, to start pulling plugs? Why don't they
We don't wait for it to overflow. If we wait for it to overflow, then it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you let it go before?
You have to let it go before, otherwise it could break the dam, and then we have bigger problems and much more expensive problems.
Yeah, I asked this when Tal came out last time, and I hadn't heard of any post-storm eval across all governmental entities across our community. Have you been a part of any post-storm reviews on sort of how we've done, any weaknesses that we have?
Sure, there's a lot ongoing. We haven't gotten a study on it. I mean, that's usually at the staff. We're policy. And also because of sunshine, we all can't be in a room at the same time, so we can't just all sit around and listen to it. I know we've had EOCs from different groups all get together. There's been preliminary conversations about things like the debris recovery in terms of the pickups, because we had multiple different contracts here that were all kind of bumping into each other and going at different speeds. There's been conversations at this point in time, but that's about the extent of it.
What sort of level? I mean, because we're
The level that doesn't involve me at this point in time. It's all been like our county administrator, our director of public safety, people involved in our public works, having conversations. Because anytime there's any kind of storm, we'll sit there when Ian came through, there was conversation about what do we do with all the lift stations that went down. And one of the things was we went out and bought a bunch more generators, and we kept them in a warehouse, and that's why some of these lift stations were going back up faster after Milton, because we had more generators from a download from the last one. We were already prepared to go out to Mayaca after the last one, so we already had community center set up. Every time any kind of storm hits or any event hits, we always look for what went wrong and what went right, and how do we come up with best practices for next time. Within the individual municipalities, they're constantly talking. I mean, they're always talking about how can we work for the best interest, whether it be from an evacuation route or how we best handle the fire departments and MSO along with their police forces. But we as a county commission have not been directly involved. That's all been at the staff level at this point.
Well, yeah, just because there were many issues, directly during the storm, thereafter. Like, we're dealing with 3 municipalities across a 7-mile stretch, right? And the inefficiencies, lack of communication, right? These are all things at a policy level, right, that need to be addressed. Because even when I brought up with Tal during that town hall meeting, he said, well, we have to watch how we don't step on anyone's toes at the municipal level.
Sure.
But quite honestly, if we're not able to rebuild our communities before the next storm hits, then where's the leadership in that?
I hear what you're saying about but we're talking specific to this minute with the municipality situation on side.
Well, but there's county too, right? Counties have the beaches, right? And counties dictated when we could get back on island to go and protect our businesses, which we couldn't even communicate with at the county level. So where do we?
Whoa, the county did not dictate that. We never shut anything down. That wasn't us.
Well, sure. But I rented the bridges.
That was not.
Yeah.
That was
What do you mean? No, it was.
The county?
Yeah.
It was not the county.
Bradenton Beach had their own set, I'm sorry, police chief.
The county does not dictate that.
Bradenton Beach had their own area.
But
that
we were
was
told to
contained.
communicate with the counties.
No, it wasn't the county.
Oh, at the bridge, that's what they said.
It was Bradenton Beach that dictated.
Everyone
when
tells
they
you
were
to
gonna
dictate
open
something.
home
I'm just
streets,
telling you,
dictated
but that's the kind of communication, right, to the general public. So you don't want to say it's false, because that's what was communicated at the bridges.
Which city are you from?
Well, it was Bradenton Beach, because it was Cortez. Well, you know everything about Bradenton Beach.
So Bradenton
Right.
Beach was contained in.
And everyone
Cortez
wants to
and
sit by
Long
and not do any leadership and government accountability about what happens at that level.
Sure. And here's
And
all,
you're going to sit there and try to tiptoe around.
and here's what I'll say. Look, when everybody didn't want to be consolidated, everyone talked about we want home rule, we want our individual cities to be able to control things, and don't let the county come and dictate our development codes and blah blah blah. The city should control. But then when it's not convenient, it's also why doesn't the county come in and fix it? It's like either have chartered home rule or you don't. I'm a big proponent of home rule. It's why I push back on the parking garage, why I push back on the consolidation thing. At the end of the day, a city is a city. The county can't just pick and choose when we're going to supersede a city. I respect Judy. I respect her leadership. I respect how she oversees Homeless Beach, I'm never going to step on her toes, nor would I even have the legal grounds to do so at the state. If your garbage gets picked up too slow in Bradenton Beach, if Bradenton Beach chooses to block off and quarantine everyone in there, that's unfortunate. And I will take your call and I will commiserate with you in any way I can help within the confines of the law and state statute. I will. I was out at Bradenton Beach many times going through those barriers. I was meeting with people in their carports under their house on the sill, just to meet with groups of 20, 30 people to talk about things. I was working with Anna Marie Island to try to get comfort stations down here. I was doing everything I could to help them because I've got the contacts to do that, but I couldn't go into Mayor Chappie and say, open up this bridge. I don't have the authority to do that.
It is to do a post-event, right, eval across the authoritative bodies, across, and there are still issues. Like, we're not even at a point of being able to rebuild effectively, right? When we've done everything on our own dime, right? Haven't asked for any other money or anything else along those lines, right? And still aren't able to even get to a point of rebuilding before the next storm season. And everyone just wants to sit back, and I know you're going to stand behind. I'm not trying to talk about home rule. I get home rule, right? But you can't stand behind that, right? We need effective leadership across bodies, whatever that means. If it means if we can't do effective leadership for our general community, the way that it's set up, then maybe something does have to change.
I'm going to piggyback on that for a moment. Can I ask a question? I got a couple things to ask. Did you reach out to Mayor Titsworth since October, since the hurricane?
I thought, okay,
Did she respond to you?
sure.
So what Tal said,
swearing in November.
I understand, but what Tal said in the meeting last week, he said that he reached out. So, Walt and I are both obviously in the city of Holmes Beach. My name's Derek Williams. I'm the owner of the Drift Inn. I own Williams Wealth Management Group in the city of Bradenton. I live in the county. I have a home in East County, and I own the Drift on Bradenton Beach. Okay, and I have a condo in Holmes Beach. So I got a basis covered. Trying to figure out again the different rules and regs on and off the island, things that he's talking about. Trying to trust government, and especially in a small place like what we're dealing with and all of the tomfoolery that's going on, like it or not. Again, my message is these are real people that are really hurting, and we're kind of skirting around how we actually just get some solutions while we figure out all this other mess that's being accusations and all the other things are happening. But it's happening in real time. In my situation, I want to just share with you, if you didn't see the video or have read the articles, I got a permit. I work with the city. I work with the city planner. I work with code enforcement. On a daily basis, my business is a block and a half from City Hall. I was down there constantly. And, that trust, that inability to work and get straight answers that you can then get your businesses back reopened and people back to work. You talked about, earlier in this conversation, you talked about the transportation issue. Well, again, I'm at the gateway to downtown. So on my way here, traffic was backed all the way up past 51st Street where I live, going downtown. Pretty much every morning when I come out, that bottleneck, as you come out to the island, I have to make that big decision. Am I going to turn left to go 75th to Cortez, or am I going to come out through Manatee Avenue and cut across? It's just out of control. I've lived here 51 years. Everybody's heard these, back in the day stories, but what are we doing? I know you guys came in here under this mandate of trying to fix some of the things that have been delayed for so long. To Walt's point, we don't have time to wait. We're missing season. We're not able to fortify our places and reopen our businesses. In my situation, or the city of Bradenton Beach, I can't speak for everybody else. There were these permits. They're hiding behind FEMA and the FEMA rules. And supposedly the head FEMA people were here. It's complicated. It's not like I necessarily have a question as much as it's a statement. You said at the beginning that you reply to emails. Did you get my email? Because I emailed you and Tal. The same day I emailed the governor, I emailed Will Robinson, Jim Boyd, Vern Buchanan. I've reached out to all of you guys. You know how many people have reached back to me so far? One. Will Robinson called me on my cell phone. One person. And, I'm saying there is a situation. The mayor's saying he's not responding to your fellow commissioner. The commissioner's telling all of us in the meeting last week, I've been calling since October and he won't return my calls. There's
clearly a dysfunctional situation happening, and I just hate to pick on Bradenton Beach. I mean, Bradenton Beach has a library too. I'd love to have the next town hall meeting at Bradenton Beach Library, by the way. I don't think it's ever been used, but I would love to have one there. I don't care. You don't need it any bigger. I just want to see it.
No, and I hear what you're saying. Again, I have to respect the individual municipality. That said, I do my best to advocate. In the past week, I met with Dan West yesterday from City of Palmetto. I'm meeting with Gene tomorrow. I talked to Judy on a fair bit of basis. I was talking to Mark. We're supposed to be setting up something to sit down and meet. And I traded voicemails with Chappie earlier today. Like, I talked to all of the mayors from all of the.
So Jack responded to you. He didn't respond to Al.
I guess. Maybe he likes me. Oh.
I don't know. I mean,
But-
I would like him to respond to anybody and not talk to me in a derogatory fashion in a public meeting. It's on video.
Yeah.
My mom doesn't scold me the way he scolds me in those meetings. And I'm literally there as.
I can't speak to it because I'm not going to speak. I wasn't there, and I'm not going to speak about any other government body without having better. It's just not my position to do so. That's I wouldn't want them sitting here bashing the county commission or me either, especially without fact. But what I'm saying is, if you want to talk, I mean, well, just like a week or two ago, we were sitting next to each other at the chamber board meeting. I mean, we could sit there and talk whenever.
Sure.
And I'll happily sit and talk to you, and then I'll reach
I'll
out.
tell you something. On the record in the meeting, the city attorney from Bradenton Beach threatened me about coercing commissioners. I've been actually fearful to talk to any commissioner because, you know what, whatever my rights are, I've been following rules. And this is on record. I can get the video.
Well, that's a different story if she wants to say that. Because look, at the end of the day, we're in an interesting little situation here because I have to respect each of your municipalities because you're a resident of Holmes Beach, you're a resident of Bradenton Beach. You're also a resident of Manatee County. At no point in time are you also not my constituent.
There you go.
Regardless of what Chappie or an attorney says, or Judy says, or Mark says, or Gene says, you're still part of Manatee County, and I'm still an at-large county commissioner, and I will and do represent all of you regardless of where you live, regardless of what party affiliation you are, regardless of whether I even believe what you're trying. I do my best to represent 450,000 people in this town. So at no point in time can anyone ever admonish you for speaking to a county commissioner. Come talk to me. In fact, now I really want you to talk to me. You know, and I'll do what I can to help you within the statute that I can. I can't walk in and issue a permit. I can't go in there and start. I know
We
you
need
do.
action,
I know. I've heard
right?
this.
It takes leadership. It takes bold leadership because, like I said, it's been put out there, right? The real stuff that's going on, right? And you can't just walk away and just turn a blind eye to it.
Again, I want to let you speak. I just want to again.
Oh, I was going to give you some insight as
Sure.
far as being a city.
Okay.
He's right. There's charters of the city. The counties can't really overstep certain things, but when you look at the charter of the city, it tells you the steps that the people can make if you lose confidence in your city leadership. And I feel horrible for what you all are going through. It's terrible that they allowed that backlog in permitting. It's terrible that who they had in those positions, they didn't have enough people in the positions.
But they said in
You
their
have to be prepared for these situations. You have to have your staff has to have the support to be there when things go bad. And Bradenton Beach didn't have that. And I feel really bad for the citizens about how long they're still waiting for permits.
Well, what's the term? What's the term when the cities share in those duties, like with
An
building
interlocal
officials?
agreement.
Okay, so
So we have an interlocal agreement to where, for instance, if your building official goes on vacation and he needs backup from the city of Holmes Beach, same thing with Anna Maria. So we have that. Once your city got in the position they got themselves into, they asked us to see if we could help. I want to make sure everybody on the island gets recovered as quickly as possible because who knows what's going to happen next hurricane season. I went to the building department and said, if there's any way possible you can help them out, we need to work on it. To start doing some of those inspections, those businesses need to get opened back up. We did that, and we started doing inspections. And then that meeting happened where the city attorney said, FEMA came, wrote in a scathing letter. Some of these permits that were issued maybe should not have been issued, and she went on and on and on. And my building official's eyes got really big. He's got sort of licensing, and I'm going, do we feel comfortable passing inspections on maybe a permit that should never have been issued? So I said, maybe the best thing we can do is train their staff. So we had a meeting with Lucinda and one of the commissioners. She's the woman, she's a newer commissioner. Debbie. And I told them how many people they need to hire, what's the most important people that you can have on your building department team, how much we're paying them. Pay them good, because it takes a lot of time to get out to the island, and it's going to be hard to hire these positions. You pay them good, you get them on as quick as you can, and we will help train them. And I said, you've got to get these permits issued, and we're here to do that. But yes, you don't want counties. Well, you can't. Counties don't have the power to take over cities. States do, but you don't want that, because then you lose everything. What you want to do is elect good people in office that's got your back. If you lose confidence, there's steps you can take in the city charter as citizens to deal with that. Right now, you just have a really
I think
unfortunate.
I think that's something that we understand and agree with, but the idea of, again, back-to-back storms. I'm not picking sides with the building official or anyone. I'm not.
Right.
I'm saying that there's a city, there's a government, and there's people that have roles, and those roles are building official or floodplain administrator or whatever,
Right.
and they're paid to make decisions. They were hired in whatever process was followed. We were following those folks, no different than getting over the bridge onto the island, and I will vouch for what he's saying, because, again, I took this wrong word. I took this opportunity to become this, the leader of our merchants group, because it wasn't a lot of business unity on Bradenton Beach, and I believe in the chamber and in that type of working together. And so I was one of the first people out there with the chief and with the mayor and with the people that were here when we came over the bridge that day. And there was a sincere, everybody remembers that first moment. I use the analogy of 9/11. I mean, the whole country came together, was patriotic, at least for a day, if not a week or a month. And then it slowly goes back to normal, right? That's what it was like. So that's what we were operating under. And it seems like that's all getting lost in the shuffle of when things started switching back to more normal times. They make the statements in those meetings, George, that we have this shared agreement and people are coming down. They lost control. They fired people. They're still sitting back saying, "Hey, MT Causey Safe Built's under contract. They're providing services." I contacted them. No answers. I go down to the city hall in Bradenton Beach pretty regularly, and I ask, like I just said, the last time I went, I got an answer. We'll get back to you today. I said, "Who's the city planner?" There's so much dysfunction, is what I'll say, and it's an unenviable position. I don't want to directly make any of these accusations, but you don't need to be a genius. You start putting the pieces together, and you go, man, people are losing their homes and their businesses. I have clients in my business, in my day job, like I said, that own businesses that, they couldn't get their electric on, and now guess who's coming and bought their property at a discount? That's happening. That's really happening, man. This guy is one of the most, respected businessmen in Manatee County, and he lost one of his locations in Bradenton Beach because of some games that I think were being played. And he's not going to stand up and deal with this stuff. So somebody's got to stand up. Who do we reach out to? How do going through the long process of the charter and all that? Again, I respect it. I understand. But we're talking about, again, I'm pretty positive, if nobody's hypocrites, right after that storm, decisions were made and things were done that weren't perfect and followed some stinking protocol. But at some point, again, when you unwind it, and then you want to look back on it and you're hammering people and hide under whatever federal or however the FEMA part, like I said, works. It's just government. You said it earlier. Again, the government's here to serve the people. We're trying to make what's that balance of too big and too small? Who are we supposed to trust? What are we supposed to do? We can't reach out to you. You can't look at them. They don't return your calls. That's what your other commissioner said. We go to them. We get turned around.
we go through their processes and we get like, the permits and the things, and we still get hammered. We're the ones on the chopping blocks with our necks out. We have real people, real employees hurting, and I just want to continue to pound the pavement on that, man.
And I hear you. And here's the problem. Like we talk about, and I half joke about the state, half. The other half, I mean it. But the problem is, it's situations like this. And again, I don't know every single fact, so I'm just going to make a blanket statement. In situations like this, which gets the state to come in here and threaten to consolidate. It's situations like this that get them to pass preemption laws across people all over the state of Florida, because if they perceive there's at least a theoretical bad actor someplace, then it puts a black cloud over everybody. And so if they say, hey, wait a minute, businesses are being driven out, residences are being driven out for reasons that are not on the up and up, then you risk them coming back in and saying, let's dust off that Apaga study again, because there's one rogue area here, so we might as well just clean house. And then they start passing preemption laws everywhere, and next thing you know, they're going to say, counties should handle all permitting, and we're going to pull permitting rights out of every municipality, including City of Bradenton, including City of Palmetto, including Holmes Beach, ones that are doing it right. That's the risk. That's why you can't allow bad actors to do bad things, because it impacts not just you, it impacts everybody in the state, because it gives them a foot in the door.
George, I would say this, okay, and I gotta say, yeah, I agree. It's easy to say that when it's somebody else. It's been easy to look at this across the country in other areas and see what has happened to other municipalities, but the reality is, we're a small group. Again, I'm making these numbers up, but if there's 400 residents in Bradenton Beach and 200 of them just got run out, and 12 of them are the government because they live there to serve it, like we're at a point where it's like a board game more than it is a real government. And I don't care about any of the other stuff right now. Right now, I'm just going to keep screaming at the top of my lungs. We need people from way up to come out and look. And home rule and all this other stuff, if that means it's going to hurt a lot of other things that go on in our community, well, then step up and help us, because I don't know what else we can do. I mean, I've made the phone calls, I've done the emails, I haven't gotten the responses. Y'all are saying give them a chance. We've given them chances, and honestly, what we're getting is more spin and non-answers.
You have the power. The people have the power. Go into your charter. Just what Judy suggested you do is what you need to do.
That's happening already.
Well, that's it. That's the solution.
But to George's point, right? You've been in and enjoyed our pizza many times, right, George? Right, yeah. And been here to serve, right? We come up and serve your community events many times, right? So we're here for the community, right? But as your point, George, right? You can't walk away from this. We are your constituents. That's what I'm here tonight to talk to you, right? So I don't need to send you an email or anything like that. We are your constituents. We're saying here, we are stuck like Chuck, right? And it shouldn't be that way, right? If it was your son, your daughter, someone that you love, right, you would be acting different, right? You would be taking the bull by the horn, whatever that means. So because right now, home rule is not working for us. I hate to say that, but it's not.
I agree.
So then what, right? I'm not saying toss it, but there has to be other solutions. You just can't use, because I don't hear the scare tactics, George. Because right now I can't put dinner on the plate because I can't find a way to open my businesses. That's the reality. That's the reality.
My daughter has not eaten ice cream in a year.
Right.
Thanks to that. Okay.
Did the Bradenton Beach building official make some crazy accusations too? Some of the higher up?
I'll be honest again, we can talk about that if you want, because that has to center on
But it's saying there's actually an honest, ethical guy saying this is unethical on some people, and then he's getting booted out.
So let me talk about that for just a moment, so George hears this part of it, because this makes this really interesting. Right?
It does.
According to the city attorney in Bradenton Beach, there was a meeting scheduled prior to the hurricanes that occurred a couple weeks ago, that was to evaluate whether the city of Bradenton Beach should have a building official as an employee or an independent contractor. Now, at the time of that meeting, a lot of us questioned whether that was a real statement. I wouldn't even know where to go, because you go on the website and they really haven't posted their agendas or their minutes. I mean, the last one I saw in a P&Z meeting was April of last year. So, and so I looked at that and I said, okay, if that's the situation and you were doing that, it's really weird to me. This is what it looks like. It's not an accusation. It's what it looks like. It looks like you want more control over the guy that makes these decisions because you're not getting the results that you want. What Darren Cushion's statement was, is they're forcing me to do things that I don't want to do.
Right.
Specifically, had to do with a particular developer who wanted to take back over and become the general contractor back on a bunch of his projects in Bradenton Beach. And he wasn't going to go to the other general contractors and have them sign off. He was just going to force the building official to switch it over.
Right.
Well, what does that mean for all those? I'm not a general contractor. You a general contractor? What would that mean?
You can't do that. The general contractor.
Right. So when Darren said, I'm not going to do that, you know what they did the next day? Thrown him out. Now, what does that look like? And then, by the way, we planned this. We planned this before the hurricane. It just doesn't add up, man. And I could keep going. There's a whole lot more as far as I'm concerned. I've been putting together the war chest that's coming. And the people down there don't deserve it, and the county needs to know it, and the commissioners need to know it, and they need to step in. If somebody needs to step in tonight, not tomorrow, like we're ready.
Here's what I can do. What I can't do. What I can do is reach out to Chappie and everybody else and talk one-on-one with him. I cannot quote unquote step in. I do not supersede him in any way, shape, or form. We are at a level playing field because he is the mayor of a chartered municipality. I can talk to him as he used to be a commissioner, and we have a good relationship, and I can speak man to man with him and say, hey, what's going on here? Let's work together to fix this thing. But I can't force him to do literally anything. By Florida statute, this isn't because I don't want to do it. I'll more than happily help you. But the people who could would be your Representative Robinsons, your Senator Boyds. They're the only ones that you could talk to around here that are actually above them. And even they're not above them. They just have the reach within the state to be ultimately above them if they really needed to. It's just like HOAs. Like, I have no control. People call me all the time. My HOA gave me a ticket for parking on the street. I'm like, okay, then talk to your HOA, man. Like, I have no control by state statute. I have no control over your HOA. I have no control over your CDD.
Maybe tonight's statement will get their attention. Like I said, I've spoken to Will twice on the phone. I've written the email. You know, to your point, we've gone back to the city. The city will say, well, like I said, we have these people under contract. So we're not without a building official. But then when you go in the building department and there's no answer, or we're going to get back to you today with a name, and there's never a name. And then I have it from my lawyer who reached out to them and said, all right, this is what we need to do. And it went to Chappie, and it went to the attorney, it went to the people that we get non-answers. We get spin, we get, I get it, you're reeling, but we need guidance. This didn't start yesterday or a week ago or a month ago. This has been going on since October.
Like I said, I've been trading back and forth voicemails. I've been in meetings all day. He called me this morning. I called him back. He called me back. We've been trading voicemails. I will reach out to Chappie, and I will say at his convenience, whatever works for him next week, for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, I will come out here, and I'm going to ask him to sit with me to have a conversation about what's going on at Bradenton Beach so I can hear it straight from him, his opinion of it, and give him my opinion of what needs to be done. I can't do any more than that because I can't force him to do anything, but I will set up a meeting with him at his convenience out here in Bradenton Beach and meet with him to talk about this face to face.
I tell you, the beach shop is not open.
I know. The one downtown is.
My plan is going to be fine, So, in my old hat, my closed-toe shoe job before I came to the island, as emergency service director for the American Red Cross Emergency Management, first boots on the ground for Katrina, right? And so to the intergovernmental agreements, right? These are supposed to be well established, right? So in a time of emergency, right, communication flows, you know who's on first, you know who's on second, right? Where you communicate, where you get communication from, we know who's operating the bridges, so forth and so forth. But when cities, in this case, get overwhelmed, right, there's a protocol in place to say what happens. You can tap in, like FEMA. That's the whole premise of FEMA, right? Is to respond in time of emergency. So they are the overall arcing authority, right? And they sort of determine what sort of happens, right? From a state level,
Sure.
Right? From a state level. And that's all I'm saying is like, obviously we've got some things that aren't quite working right, right? And I'm saying there would be high advice to have public workshops, right? So it's just not against department staff or whatever the case might be. But, like even before we even took 5 feet of sand out of our stores, right? I couldn't get to the food, and therefore it became a hazmat issue. Therefore, it tacked on $20,000 of my dollars just to get hazmat because I couldn't get back to the restaurant. right? And I couldn't talk to anyone about that.
Sure, and it wouldn't hurt the three island cities to sit down and have a joint meeting to discuss how can we work things out together, especially in the event of a storm. We are, like I said, having joint meetings with every single municipality, and a topic of agenda item on every one of them has to do with emergency services and disaster recovery. Like we're meeting this this Friday, like I said, with City of Bradenton. One of the topics is their utility systems and stormwater systems and sewage systems that just keep dumping stuff where it's not supposed to be. We're having that conversation with them to see if there's an opportunity for an interlocal. We're having conversations with them about our EOC and disaster recovery when it comes to infrastructure and so forth that crosses over their municipality. We're having these conversations. When we have our conversations out here, I've proposed, and this I have no say in this whatsoever because they are charter. I propose we just have one master emergency, disaster recovery contract across the county. I thought it was ridiculous that we had Ashford in one place, and DRC in another place, and Sirius in another place, and everyone's butting up in each other, and there's piles of garbage all over the place. And then some people were getting their garbage picked up, and other people weren't getting their garbage picked up. And I had to tell people, you're on that side of the line, so you're City of Bradenton, so I'm not picking up your stuff. I thought that was ridiculous. But these are conversations on all of the agendas for all the municipalities are, and granted that's just county versus municipality, not everybody. But those are topics of conversation.
Because directly, like first days that we were able to come on the island, right, there was barriers, right, between the cities. So as I responded, because we have operations up on the north end, right, if I tried to come down to my stores on the south end, I had to get back off island.
Well, there.
Okay. Well, how now? We're aware of these things, but we chuckle about it. Like how ridiculous! And we hide behind that. Like it's not right. It's not right.
Now, the cities are going to meet and see, lessons learned from this, but we had to wait for the election because Mayor Murphy was retiring, and we wanted to make sure we had our lessons learned with the new mayor. So he knew. So we are going to still do that. But we were in contact constantly through the storms. But if they don't ask for assistance, we don't know what we don't know.
Who was the one responsible? Because there were barriers in Holmes Beach, right?
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, please.
I'll speak to that, okay? So when you were going south, okay, on Gulf Drive at 27, okay, that barrier was asked to be manned by Bradenton Beach. They asked us to not allow anybody to go south through there. They wanted their main roadway, when they opened, they wanted the only way for people to get out to be Cortez Road and go from there. That was their request to us. So that's why the barriers were put there, and that's why we had police there that were stopping people to go down, because the police chief had asked that nobody go south, that they were checking people in at the Cortez Bridge, and they had somebody at Longboat Bridge. Okay?
We were open before.
We were open way before because we were open way before because of the roadway issues, and that took a long time. So I do understand the problems with the roadway, and they couldn't get cars out there. But once they could get cars, they continued just want Cortez Bridge to be the only avenue for people on Bradenton Beach to get out to Bradenton Beach. And I have to respect what he's asking.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't let people go from Anna Maria into Bradenton Beach, and that's why we told them, if you go back down and around 75th and back out Cortez, because that's where their checkpoint was, and that's where they were doing their checkpoint. Good. So, and to say that the county said that you couldn't come back onto the island,
I'm just telling you.
I'm telling you that is not the truth. Okay, because
that would be the first time.
Bradenton Beach chief was the one that dictated who came onto Cortez, and I'm the one that
I heard a completely different version of this. I heard that said developer wanted to be able to get in and out with his stuff, and this Bradenton Beach was trying to use FEMA dollars to clear more of the roadways, not just the main drag, but additional areas. So they were coming in and they befriended people, and things were happening to our betterment. But like you said, we were put on certain restrictions, and we were told not to put stuff here. I don't know.
I can't
it was
speak to
very,
that, but I will tell
very
you
Wild West.
that when the checkpoint was there and we still had a curfew, said developer was in our city. We caught him and we threw him out.
I got pictures of my feet.
It is interesting, right? Yeah, I know the county's big on studies. Here's a study for you, right? Look at where the FEMA dollars flow. Track the FEMA, right? It's government dollars, so we should be able to track these things. Yeah. I wonder, just here in Bradenton Beach, right, for us, right? Because we didn't even as a family receive the $750 grocery money or whatever that was, right? So it'll be interesting because I keep on hearing all the money that flowed through to the city, right? In our case, and I understand because there was extra labor and stuff along those lines. But many of those FEMA dollars never made it down to your constituents. Never.
No, they had a meeting. They had a meeting. Well, again, they had a meeting, and in the meeting, they literally, I want to say this part. They literally had a meeting, and they decided to give our city attorney an additional title so they could double pay her lawyer time and her FEMA time. And then they openly in the meeting said, we're going to put it to the max levels, $150 an hour, but she normally charges us $500, so it's a good deal. And they double dipped on FEMA. I want that out there. She got paid that money. That's in the meeting. That's in the notes. Like, I didn't get paid to work. I get it.
It was out there. So, you know, my heart goes out to our neighbors in Bradenton Beach, and this is not the first time that I've heard these stories, and it's painful to hear, and I'm really sorry, but I want to go on record as saying that as a resident of Anna Maria, that city did a marvelous job for its residents.
So did Holmes Beach.
Yeah, I know it, but as a resident of Anna Maria, I want to say how pleased we were with every aspect of how our city handled, how they responded to us, expediting.
Two of my peers.
Yeah, I know. Oh,
those two peers?
but they expedited permits. They just did a wonderful.
I know this will be kind of crazy, but I just want to say something else now. Actually, immediately following our storms, I thought the city of Bradenton Beach did a wonderful job also. I saw a lot of compassion from the mayor, the city attorney, the police chief, all of these people initially. Even what I just said about FEMA and clearing roadways, they were very proud that they were able to use whatever resources just to make things happen, or at least that's what they were telling us. But then in the end, like I said, as it got a little bit further, all these things start shifting and then they start pointing fingers and hiding behind things. And I'm like, yeah, back to that transparency thing you're talking about, we really should have, we just need more clarity on all this. I think we need they need to really look into this whole process.
Well, I want to commend the county and the city of Anna Maria and this library and FEMA, just personal experience, because I live in Anna Maria on North Shore. And we just got back in our house last week. And we lived at the Compass Hotel with our dog since November 17th, courtesy of FEMA. And that enabled us to, repair our house and get it done as soon as possible. And FEMA also showed up here at this library along with Citizens Insurance. And I walked in one day, and there they were. And if you went to Palmetto or George G. Gray Park, you had to walk a long time. But here they were, right on the island. And it was just a matter of getting the word out and letting people know. So I also want to thank the library staff here for all they did, because you saw them. They were out there in the parking lot with the showers and the nice porta potties and getting the food trucks. The building was here, and it was cool, and it was quiet, and it was normal. And two of our staff members live on the island and lost their own houses, and they were here working for all of us. So I do want to commend the county and also FEMA on the things that personally took care of.
Sure that was you, Jim.
Yeah.
She said out of Maria,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the
well,
library.
The mayor asked me if we could get FEMA here. I called Jimmy
Right.
Petronas, and he had him here the next week.
It's on,
So,
June.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's why we don't want to merge this.
I just want to thank you again for representing the island's interests in that period with the garage and the PAGA study. And because the other elected leaders we had were looking at other interests and not ours, and so I really appreciate that. And a couple times it's come up about the traffic. I mean, with what's the development in Bradenton, it's just going to be more intense. More people are coming to the island. There has to be a way to address this issue because the island just can't take more traffic. I mean, no matter what you do with the width of the bridges or whatever improvements we make, you're still teeing off and bottlenecking at Cortez and Manatee into 1 lane north, 1 lane south. And you can't change that because you change the character of the island. So there was a DOT study done earlier that looked at this, and they recommended park and ride in Bradenton, and then taking the trolley system and expanding that and bringing people on. The island, we can't do that. I mean, the island communities can support that, and I think we would support that, but we can't implement that because that means implementation that the county has to get involved in. Is that something that can really be addressed?
Yeah, it's something we've looked at. I think I've talked about it numerous times here. I mean, it's the most logical option. I mean, there's no fix. There's a little bit better, but to your point, it's one lane north and south. You're going to bottleneck when you get on the island, no matter what. And people want to be here. You have some of the best restaurants in town. You have the only beaches / best beaches in town. People want to be on Anna Maria. It's a beautiful place. There's a reason all of you are out here. You can't prevent people from coming someplace they want to be. That's the unfortunate part. You see the same thing on Siesta Key and places like that. But I mean, I'm a huge, all 4 years I've been in sport, I'm a huge proponent of less roads. I don't think that's the long-term solution for Manatee County or any place. You can't keep going to 4 lanes and 6 lanes and 8 lanes. And then all of a sudden just you have no green space that's entirely paved over just so people can drive someplace faster. You know, we have a very car-centric community and car-centric country for that matter, so it's tough. There are potential solutions. They're not going to be fast fixes, though. Park and ride is the most logical one because it still allows people to use their car. You go out by somewhere in the vicinity of 75th and you know, Manatee, and you put a parking garage out there, or you have surface parking out there. But the way you make that work is you need to redo the bridge with a 3rd lane, and they did that at Ringley. Down in Sarasota. They didn't build a new lane. They just took away one of their bike lanes, emergency lanes, and turned it into a transit lane. Once you can do that, where someone can park and in 10 minutes be on Manatee Beach, because there's no traffic. No one wants to sit in traffic on a hot bus. You might as well sit in traffic in your car. But if you can tell somebody you can hop on a trolley and in 10 minutes be all
the way down the causeway, through the bridge.
Correct. And then once you get down there, we got the island trolley. Now it starts making sense. And the biggest problem is what happens when it rains, because everyone leaves. You know, you saw it today. Traffic was endless coming off this island. You need to be able to shuffle people fast back to their car. That's the only meaningful solution. The other solution is just general multimodal, which is something we're working on, but that's a longer process. My biggest focus since the day I got on this board was creating an entire countywide trail system, similar to what they have down at Legacy Trail in Sarasota. I've been working on that very hard. We've gotten millions of dollars from state and federal funds. We're gearing up to start our first leg. Part of SMR built some of it, but that ultimately is going to stretch all throughout the county. We're breaking ground on the east-west piece from Parish to Palmetto right now. In fact, there's a meeting going on up in Palmetto about it. Eventually, that will come out here to the island. And I know Holmes Beach has specifically talked to the TDC, and we have a new member of the TDC in the back. So maybe Dan can help you find some money for a trail system. But we really need that trail system to be the entire island, because eventually it'll connect to Longwood. If you can get that and be able to take, especially now with e-bikes, having people come across, that also keeps cars off of the road. All the trail system the county's working on now, we're already re-engineering the previous plans. They were like 8 to 10 feet lanes, bike lanes. Now we're going to like 12 to 15 feet is what we're looking at, because that way we can kind of paint like 3 feet of it strictly for e-bikes and motorized vehicles, because then it goes from a recreational trail system to a commuter trail system. So that's another option. So there are a number of options to start getting cars off here. None of them are tomorrow. There's no like snap your finger now. People just, there's no park and ride exists. There's no transit lane on that bridge until it gets built. They're building Cortez first. There is a concept that Commissioner Siddiq mentioned, which was a good one that got favorable attention by the board, is we did just buy Seafood Shack, and eventually there will be docking area opportunities there. And we're in the process of waiting for receipt of the new faster ferry that'll go from downtown Bradenton to City of Anna Maria once they find their piers. But then it was a joke.
It hurts.
But once that happens, because right now it has to bypass it all the way down to Bridge Street, and that defeats the purpose of the faster one right now, because the 2 smaller ones will kind of troll back and forth on the intercoastal, and we're already talking to Colombo Key and eventually Sarasota about making it a dual county operation. But what Commissioner Siddiq mentioned was we can also go cross intercoastal, and therefore we're going to have a lot of parking opportunity over at it's like 180 spots over at Seafood Shack. So we could be using one of those ferries as one of the stops. to allow people to park on the mainland side on Cortez and ferry people over to Bradenton Beach without having to take the bridge over, which will be a more immediate solution. It's probably not the long-term solution, but it's a much quicker one. We can get that going within the next 12, 18 months, whereas doing a parking ride is years down the road.
Yeah, but see, that's a good example though, because it takes not thinking linearly. I mean, if we're saying, well, we're going to wait till to make improvements to Palmasola until we have a bridge in Manatee, then it's going to take, you're going to have the bridge, and then you're going to another 2 years, and another 2 years. So I'm talking about the county anticipating.
There's no fast solution.
No,
There's just not. We're trying to come up with the best solution. I know Kruse is working on finally getting that water pipe off of the bridge, which could allow for some biking and other opportunities instead of cars. I don't think that pipe is affecting your traffic by any stretch of the imagination. But I'm using it as an example of anything we can do to help keep any cars off the road, we're going to do. But there's no quick solution. I think that ferry is the quickest one. That ferry has been very popular from downtown Bradenton to this island. I mean, originally we were like, is anyone going to use it? It was a test run. We only had it going like 2 days a week. Then it was 3 days a week. And then before the hurricanes, it was like 5 days a week plus holidays. And it's full every one of them. So it has been successful. If we can start getting people on the faster covered boat all the way down to the island in sub 20 minutes, 30 minutes, more people will use it, and that'll help. We're doing whatever we can to help alleviate your traffic within the confines of what we can physically do at this point in time, while thinking long term. I have talked to DOT about the transit lanes. We are talking to MPO and ourselves about expanding the trail system so it can get over to the island and then use TDC funds to allow people to have buffered, safe trails throughout the island so you don't risk getting hit by a car. Wombo Key's already starting their first leg of a buffer trail system on the north part of Wombo Key. And eventually that'll go down Wombo Key and reconnect at St. Armand's back to Legacy Trail. And then you're going to have a complete loop that you can take because Legacy Trail is connecting to the east part of our trail system that we're building.
Yeah, all those things make sense. But for example, someone mentioned they put in reinforcement on the either side of the Palmasola causeway to reinforce the shoulders of the road.
That helps with drainage.
Right, exactly.
Take more questions.
But you could anticipate that we put in the road bed there so that in the future we can have lanes there, so you can have the dedicated lane down to them. I'm just asking for not to think linearly, to think anticipatorily and think about how to get funding appropriated in advance.
Sure. And I could promise you that this board is not thinking just we need to figure out ways of getting more cars. We understand that's not feasible. When we collectively with this new board killed the parking garage and said there has to be a better way, it was now on us to come up with a better way. And the better way is not figure out how to cram more cars onto this island. I'd rather cram less cars onto this island. I mean, it's the only way. It's just a matter of things take time and things cost money. And so we need to come up with the immediate fixes and then the long-term fixes. Right now, we're focused on the immediate fixes while talking to DOT and talking to MPO and everyone else about the long-term fixes. They're both they're parallel conversations, both happening at the same time. But the near-term fixes aren't going to fix it. They're just going to make it a little bit better. But we'll do whatever we can in the near term.
But an immediate fix, it could have been this ship is probably sailing as a missed opportunity, and it was related to the redevelopment of 75th and Cortez, that area, that 8,000 units that's going to go in there.
That ship hasn't really sailed as much as one. You'd still end up with a situation of being stuck in traffic getting across. I know Cortez Bridge is being built for a second. That was private property. So the ship only sails to the extent a private landowner wanted to sell his private property to build a parking garage. I don't know if that would have been their best thing or if it would have been even cost effective to buy that land. Considering
I'm talking about the developer being required to provide the park and ride within that new development. So rather than the 8,000 people.
That development was approved back in like 2010.
That's what I'm saying. The ship is safe.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of anticipating things in the future rather than just letting things get approved. And I know that's not necessary. That was approved by Bradenton, the city, but they weren't thinking. But they weren't thinking ahead, and they're not. And the impact fees aren't being put into. I mean, this is not only the traffic, but also other infrastructure. I mean, the dumping in the Manatee River. I mean, come on, they got to get ahead of it. They got to fund it, but they're not holding the developer. The developers are coming in, doing their developments, and then walking away and taking their profits out. And they're not being required to put in the impact fees over time that gives you the funding to get some of these things taken care of.
You're transitioning to a different thing, but
Right.
that's okay. Impact fees can't be used for maintenance. They can only be used for expansion and changes to growth. So the problems City of Bradenton is having relative to dumping things in the river, that's maintenance issues. Impact fees couldn't be used for that, number one. Number two, City of Bradenton admittedly doesn't have a tremendous amount of growth to a point where underfunding impact fees is really moving a needle. It's not that they have none, but a lot of the growth, fortunately, based on where I focus, has been more on affordable housing. You have the Met, you have Riverview 6, you've got 920. Those are all affordable, so they were having their impact fees waived anyway. The City of Bradenton's issue is just the age of their infrastructure. They acknowledge it. They're working on it. We're working with them on it. They still have a lot of clay pipes, and they start leaking, and the seepage from it, they have to line them. That takes a lot of time and money to line those. We are working with them. I have been talking to them about some sort of an interlocal to at least alleviate some of the capacity issues they have with stormwater and sewer. We've got capacity. They need capacity, so there's ways we can work that out. Relative to impact fees in general, I don't disagree. From day one on this board, I've been pushing my board to charge 100% impact fees. They wanted nothing to do with it. Now I have a board that will do it. We started that process. We started a lot of processes to fix past mistakes, at least that I believe are past mistakes. Between now and we go on recess the end of June for like 5 weeks when the kids are out of school. Between now and June, the wetland buffers are supposed to completely be unwound and back. Impact fees are supposed to get fully voted on to be 100% of a new study, which is now being updated to make sure the numbers are fully accurate. Policy 2.1.2.8, which allows for development east of FDAD, is going to be completely unwound. The draft and the presentation of the proposed final comprehensive plan rewrite, so all that before the summer. Like, we have gone full force to fix things from the past, and one of them is the impact fees. We've already got the new report going. It's supposed to come next month, I think, and then we're supposed to start voting on it by beginning of May. We're in a position to have 2 town halls with the public. And then it goes to planning commission mid-May, and then it comes to us. We have to have 2 hearings, and we have sped this up to make sure the second and final hearing happens before we go on recess. The state is now actively trying to fight that, seemingly, because there's 2 new bills that just got filed that seemingly are directly pointed at Manatee County. However, those bills say their effective date is until July 1st. We're going to try to get this thing done. So,
Thank you for that.
Maybe with the MPO and the TDC, we can work towards the future of getting the funding so that when our bridge in 2029 is done, that could be already pre-funded to get the roadway all the way out to the bridge and to the, with the park and ride. Because we're going to need that extra trolley tram lane, because nobody's going to, like you said, no one's going to
I
sit
don't know if
there.
they're charging us with TDC funds for that. I mean, MPO has been trying. It's been pretty proactive recently, pushing for those extra lanes and the bigger bike lanes, and they understand the concept of it.
Parking garage part of it.
Oh, I see.
Or a portion of that, because it's tourist.
Yes. Okay. Let me.
So-
Here's my concern. We spend all of our TDC funds on like one big thing at a time. There's better use of TDC funds at the end of the day. I'm not saying that parking. I'm not saying that part.
4 years down the road.
Here's the problem. The reason
Well,
you
look at
guys
it
keep
now
asking,
for the year.
I know, but like Holmes Beach keeps asking for like $5 to build a trail. Like, you want nothing. Just, can I have this little thing? And we're spending all the money on like one library and one convention center. Not that those aren't super important, but we keep building one big thing with TDC funds instead of doing the things that actually make life better, not only for the tourists, but for the residents. I'd much rather see that money go towards pocket parks on the 3 island cities and the trail system that's nice and buffered. If we try to use TDC funds, because don't forget, TDC funds are, like, every penny is allocated to a specific thing. Like, people just think you're getting $30 million in TDC funds. You can buy $30 million for everyone. No, you can't. Every penny is meticulously planned. You can charge an extra 1 penny if you've got a convention center, and that money has to go to convention. You can charge 2 pennies if you've got a sports stadium, and that money has to go towards sports. Like, everything is very specific. Very little of that $30 million is general funds, for lack of a better term, for TDC. So we got to be careful with it, because when we say we're going to fix a convention center with it, we're talking years worth of those bed taxes for one convention center, which is super important, but it's tying up opportunity, like better opportunities. If we take that money and say, let's just fix the nice stuff, let's do things that are beneficial to the tourists, but also beneficial to the residents, like trail systems and parks and kayak launches and all these other things. Then that helps everybody all throughout. It allows us to spread it throughout the county a little more. I mean, I've been a big advocate for all 3 island cities getting more of the money because you guys collect 90+% of our bed taxes and get less than 10% of the return. We've had a TDC and a board in recent years who has fought that tooth and nail. You guys had to like call something like a seawall change for $200,000 just to like shuffle the money. So we all know what you're doing. But hopefully now the board's going to change. We put somebody from the island on the TDC for the first time in a long time. We now have Amanda as the chair. I'm keeping a close eye on the TDC. So I think you're going to start seeing a little bit better distribution of funds, a little more thoughtful use of those funds. I don't know if building a parking garage is the best use of TDC funds to honor the integrity of those funds.
I'm just curious about getting like prepared for the upcoming hurricane season. I think in the past we had like maintenance on like the ditches and like the sewer systems and stuff like annually. I thought but I think last like decade or 5 years maybe something's changed and they're not doing it as regularly. But could you just talk on like maybe some big, I guess, important things you're doing for the upcoming hurricane season, and if those things are going to come back, or if that's something we're doing? I know after the hurricane here, I saw tons of sand in like the ditches out on the island.
Sure. I think if you watch did you watch the whole meeting today?
Since 1 o'clock. I watched it at the beginning.
That was the whole part about the stormwater. But the point is, the board was pretty much all on board with we need to get maintenance done. We need to fix things. We need both the one-time capital expenses, some of which comes from the block grant money, but we also need to have a dedicated funding source to fix things. 2 years ago, I proposed in a CIP meeting that we do this. That I wanted staff to go out and look for every canal and every ditch we have. I wanted them to come back. I said, I don't care who owns it. I don't care if it's a CDD, an HOA's responsibility, because at the end of the day, they're affecting some other neighborhood someplace else. I wanted a full inventory, tell me exactly how much it's going to cost to clean them and maintain all of them. Tell me what the cycle we need to be. Is every 5 years, every 10 years? I don't know. You tell me. And then we'll figure out what we need on an annual basis, and we'll find the funding source for it. The rest of the board, I didn't even get a second to even consider that as an option. Now, the new board is much more open to that idea, and I already have staff out doing full inventory. They're putting together maps of every single culvert and canal and ditch we have. We're going to figure out what's the cost of maintaining this, and then we're going to figure out the funding source wherever that comes from to make sure that, because like I went out with Dalton and spent a couple of hours going all around Gamble Creek and looking at all, and he was showing me all the ditches and the culverts and how much sand was built up in them. Those are not cheap fixes, but in the long run, those are one of the cheaper ways we can help with the flooding and the issues, if we keep those things clean. I mean, you have some of them out by Cedar Hammock that are just covered in trees, and like no water's going to flow through those things.
Yeah.
So the board's on board with that.
Right, and I know we don't get huge storms like this all the time, but like even like little rainstorms, because they're full, like become issues.
Correct. And we do have.
We're
We're fortunate to have a shot in the arm with that block grant, so we are going to be able to hit the higher risk areas without having to wait to do this whole process of coming up with a funding stream. So that yes, like some of it's already being done. We're actively signing contracts. We've actively, I've seen pictures. We've actively been cleaning some of the ditches and the canals around town as they come up. But we're looking at the Gamble Creek areas. We're looking at along 675 and out down Golf Course and over down by River Club. So we're working on getting those done with money we have now, because we know those are higher risk areas. Then we'll start working on other ones. We'll work on Center Lake and Silver
Like we've been doing it. Yeah, we've got the back trucks out here. We actually have 2 back trucks in Holmes Beach that we own, and we've been going and getting every what's called sewer system, the drainage ditch, and they're going around the public works has their Bobcat that's cleaning out
there's a big effort for it. We do have the money to get started on it. We are working on a plan to make sure in the future there's always a maintenance plan in place and we don't get behind again. Someone have their hand up over here? No? I have a question. You have lots of questions. Oh, yeah. Do you have a question?
Kind of.
Kind of?
Moratorium.
Maybe back to Derek. I don't know.
Moratorium.
Okay.
Okay, when you gave the book Strong Towns to the other commissioners, I'm thinking, George really got the message from the 2024 election. Because a big theme of that is we can't build more infrastructure. We cannot afford it because of the ultimate maintenance expenses that we have to go through. Okay. In my opinion, that really applies to Manatee County. I mean, and I really liked your comment earlier about we can't build more lanes. As someone who travels Upper Manatee River Road, Fort Hamer Road every day, which is a mess, and those 2 additional lanes are just going to be filled up immediately. So, from some of the comments you've been making online, it sounds like you're backtracking on this moratorium thing. So, what is it?
Well, backtracking, but it has to imply I was never in favor of it, which I never been in favor of.
Oh, well.
Ever.
Well.
That's like saying I was.
And I'm glad I didn't vote for you.
I don't agree with things that don't make economic sense. Like
no, you call it an absolute.
It is an absolute.
No, it's not. What we have now is an absolute where everything a developer wants, he gets. That's an absolute.
Okay.
And we make exceptions for everything. If a developer is going to be violating a provision of the comprehensive plan, we just make an amendment to the comprehensive plan and let him go ahead and do what he wants.
First off, you're talking about, we have not done that since the new board came on. We've denied. We've denied some cases here. I'm not, if you want to, I'll happily be confrontational if you want. I'm just trying to make sure we're clear. Moratoriums are a terrible, terrible idea. They make absolutely no sense because they're absolute. Moratoriums mean we literally just rezone somebody's property from ag to ag 1 because that allows for 1 home per acre instead of 1 home per 5 acres because their son wanted to have his own tax parcel to build a house. A moratorium would literally prevent that. And you can't make exceptions on moratoriums because then it's no longer a moratorium. Once you start picking and choosing winners and ignoring moratoriums for somebody else, now you're just picking winners. You're allowing government to decide who gets to do what and where, and I'm not going to support that. We have projects coming for a daycare center. That would not be allowed under a moratorium. That's being pushed even by Jason and people who want a moratorium. They're in favor of it. It's a faith-based daycare center. Guess what? Can't build it. Bob McCann put out an article specifically saying his proposal for a moratorium included prohibiting people who own homes from building pools in their backyard. That is insane.
What's insane is what we have now, though, George, where we are making exceptions constantly. Constantly.
I hear you. But you're saying, but you keep saying we are doing this. We are doing
everything so that, and not make any exceptions for anybody for at least a year. I mean, okay, there's a figure that runs around Facebook. 60 to 100,000 homes, additional homes have been authorized in this county. I mean, where's the money coming from to do that? Well, the developers sure as the heck aren't building them. Just like what you say, we're only collecting 40% of the.
I know the number. I know the number you're talking about. It's about 65,000. It's a questionable number to say the least. I'm not saying it's an inaccurate number. But first off, that number includes the individual lots that still haven't been built in Heritage Harbor. That was approved 20 years ago. These weren't projects approved yesterday. These are projects that are DRI projects that have 2-decade-long lead times for development. These are not homes that are going to happen this weekend. These are long-term. That's also a number that was asked to be put out based upon a maximum theoretical approval, which includes all kinds of incentives relative to density bonuses for mixed income and mixed use and affordable housing, which may never get built. It was the theoretical maximum approved based upon a developer taking advantage of the maximum allowable density on something, not necessarily the necessary density. And there's no timeline for it. These are projects that are so conceptual in nature that there's still trees on them and not even roads getting to them, and they're approved because you have places up in Buckeye that went all the way from Buckeye to Hillsborough border, and they had somebody rezone, way before I got on the board, rezone 1,700 acres. And then somebody comes on and goes, well, in theory, based on some things that they have, that could be 6 units per acre times 1,700 acres. That's 10,000 homes, and that gets put into that number. Is there going to be 10,000 homes there? Probably not. Is there going to be 10,000 homes there in the next year? 100% not. So that's a rough, I know where the number came from, and I'm not refuting the number. I'm just saying that's a very aggressive number in terms of a theoretical maximum over a long-term build. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, at least be a good steward of the land and be, aware that, they shouldn't be building homes in the watershed areas. I mean, there's some things that.
Sure. And see,
make
that's the
common
difference.
sense.
See, what you're saying makes sense. What you're saying is make sure development is thoughtful. I've been saying this for 4 years. I was the one vote against cutting the wetland buffers to make sure people weren't encroaching on our wetlands. I've been the one pushing for the impact fees. I've been the one who's been trying to pull out bad density bonus incentives that don't make sense, like the mixed income. I just talked about it this morning, how the mixed use density bonus doesn't make sense because you're giving somebody free density for commercial and free additional density for residential. You're double dipping additional density and you're straining the roads. I'm the one who's been pushing to get rid of minimum lot sizes because then you can get smaller homes that they're not capital A affordable, they're lowercase a affordable because they're just smaller. But we got a lot of 2,000 square foot, 3,000 square foot lots spread all over town, not in one concentrated area. And I'd much rather have 500 of these non-conforming lots get picked up by the Glenn Gibelinas and the Steve Reinhardts and all these other people to build these smaller homes that become effectively affordable due to size, spread all over the place. Then approve one 500-unit apartment complex that's going to pave over some massive parcel of land and put 1,000 cars on one road directly in front of it and all their kids in one school. That's what breaks things. That's not smart growth. Allowing that growth to happen organically all over, where each individual home is not going to materially affect a school or a piece of infrastructure, is a smarter way of doing it. But you can't even get those with a moratorium. So if you have a board who's willing to think rationally and considerately, and we've already started the process of getting rid of 2128 to not allow anyone to build east of the FDAB anymore. We've already started the process of putting back the wetland buffers, which is going to allow for more thoughtful open space and protection of the environment. You have a board that I trust that they are going to vote on things appropriately. We just had a project on 301 up in Ellington that wanted to build an 80-slip marina, and they wanted to put some retail, and they wanted to put all these homes, and all this stuck between two. It got denied 7-0. That would not have happened. I mean, we just had Fort Hammer Commons approved 5-1 right before the last board walked off the stage. And that is the most insane amount of stuff you can cram on one parcel of land I've ever seen, right at the corner of Fort Hammer and Mulholland. So, but that project would not be approved by this board. So right now, I trust that this board is being more thoughtful in their consideration. I'm going to allow this board to be more thoughtful, and I'm going to trust that we're going to get good projects that are accretive to the community. I agree with what you're saying about strong towns, to go back to it, that one of the big premises is the problem with urban sprawl isn't even so much that the homes are further away. It's you have to build the roads to get to those homes, and you have to put the pipes in to get to those homes. And the further you go, that tax base will never cover the maintenance cost of providing the services for those homes, which is why I've always petitioned for infill. I talked about it this morning. Go back and watch this video. I talked about higher incentives near infill locations, near urban corridors, down 26th and 15th and 14th and near DeSoto Square Mall. Because we already have the infrastructure, and the tax base for that doesn't require me to provide additional services. We have libraries there. We have schools that are under capacity, like Bayshore and Southeast, that can take kids without the school board having to build new schools. That's where my focus is. But even that could not be built with a moratorium. That's why I do not like moratoriums. I'd rather thoughtfully come up with the right places to build things the right way and collect the impact fees, the full impact fees from them, so I can start improving the infrastructure, then just cut everybody off. Because that's a fallacy, because impact fees and infrastructure as a whole is a Ponzi scheme, and it falls apart when the money stops coming in. And if you do a moratorium for a year, you're also doing a moratorium on collection of impact fees. And if you do a moratorium on collecting impact fees, you're not going to have the money to fix the infrastructure that you're claiming you need before you're going to allow development again. How am I going to build the new roads without the money coming in? Am I going to bond more? I'm not bonding another penny from this county. We've already way over bonded, and debt service is the second largest line item in my budget.
How are we paying for it now if we're only collecting 40%?
That's why your roads don't work. We're not. That's why your roads are all broken.
I'm getting that 100%.
We are going through the process for the impact fees. The impact fees have been collected at 40 cents on the dollar. My calculation was in the next 5 years, we collect about $585 million more of impact fees just by going to the full impact fee. That starts getting us there. And we need to be more thoughtful about what. Right now, we had a big chunk of money that was going to go towards widening 59 for no other reason than one person wanted to widen 59. That was a big chunk of change. This board said that's probably not the best use of those dollars. We're trying to be more thoughtful. I think our dollars for roads, we better spent on intersections and better spent on turn lanes and fixing what we already have rather than widening things. So I can fix way more intersections than I can widen more roads. And they're going to do way more good in terms of keeping the traffic moving and keeping things safer. So this board is trying to be more thoughtful with the dollars while also collecting more dollars by increasing the impact fees.
How are you going to collect more impact fees? Because the last board screwed you over by increasing these old impact fees to 100%, which you can't even implement all of that in 1 year. So how are you going to go 100% of a new study?
Our legal opinion, I'm not sure, we're moving forward with it, so you can fight me for it. Our legal opinion is the extenuating circumstances report that would allow us to go to 100% is inclusive of getting out of the 4-year period. The previous one was, part of it is not only can you only collect up to 50% more impact fees, but you had to stage it over 4 years, so you can only increase the impact fees once every 4 years. The case we're making and going to make, and we're moving forward with making, is that extenuating circumstance thing supersedes even the 4-year limitation on increasing them again. So we are going forward, and we're on a timeline that by June we are going to vote on increasing our impact fees to 100% of the study's amount immediately.
Anything you can
And,
do
and,
about
and then we'll end up sitting in court for a little bit because inevitably there's one person who sues us for everything that he doesn't like, and I believe we're going to win.
Bring it on.
Yes, and that's a fight we're willing to make because it's too much money and too much benefit to the community not to fight that fight.
And then don't let the county attorney convince you have to settle. Because that happens too often.
We're not settling.
You're fighting the good fight, and then attorney comes along and says, well, we better settle this.
Yes.
Aqua by the bay.
Yeah.
Big one.
So is there anything that could be done about the Fort Hamer, Mulholland thing?
There's not. The problem is there's things we can unwind, but it's not. People use the term unwind as if we're just reversing something. Most of what we're doing a new thing. Like we are going through the process of putting a comprehensive plan amendment in to widen to redo the wetland buffers. So we're basically redoing this. We're redoing a study for the impact fees. All of these are just a new action that happens to override an old action. We can't do a new action to downzone someone else's private property because then we just go to court for a take, and we would lose that because they now have the rights to do something with it. So that's the one thing we can't do is unwind previous zoning decisions. But we can make it a little bit more difficult for them because until they start pulling their permits and gear it up, the new impact fees will affect it. And I'm trying to get rid of using impact fee credits because when you get on the board, everyone tries to convince you the best thing in the world is public-private partnerships. I was told this. I was a big champion. Developers can build things twice as fast at half the cost. And you let them do it. It's public-private partnership. What you don't understand is the way the state changed something a couple years ago. If somebody goes out and builds me a road, inevitably that road's predominantly for their benefit because they're going to build a road by their neighborhood, fix the infrastructure by their, like I'll use an example. There's a project that I voted against vehemently across from the ice rink down 29th, the 60th in Allenton and 29th that goes in the back of it. Is a big project that makes absolutely no sense. It's an awful project, but they're like, it's going to work because we're going to widen 29th, and then we're going to put a light in over here at 60th. They're doing that with impact fee credits, which means we're not going to get any of their impact fees to fix Erie and Buffalo and Mendoza because they're going to spend all their impact fees just on those roads. But the reality is, I would need to widen that road or put in that light if they didn't build the project in the first place. The only reason I need to do the infrastructure improvement is because of them, and then they're offering to fix it, but they're fixing it effectively with your money because it's their impact fees that would come to you, and they're only fixing it for their own benefit. So we're going to stop that. We're going to say, look, everyone else waited their turn. People on Canal waited their turn. The people on 17th waited. People on Erie waited their turn. Now you wait your turn. I want your impact fees. And if your people are stuck riding on a bad 2-lane road, that's your problem. Good luck selling those or renting those. They're waiting their turn. I want my impact fees because I'm going to put them on what should be the next priority to fix, not what's convenient to fix based on the new development. You know, it's like there's talk about East River Ranch because it's east of they have to build their own roads, which turned out to be a lie. What they just have to do is put 2 lanes in there and call it a road. But then the argument is, well, really, this needs to be a 4-lane road because how many cars going in? So their argument is 2 of the lanes should be covered by impact fee credits, and then 2 they have to build. And I'm like, no, that's not how this works. They get a 2-lane road just like everyone else had to live with a 2-lane road. In some cases for decades, they can suffer because I'm taking their impact fees and fixing some other roads that have been waiting their turn patiently. That's the unfortunate part of impact fees. But for too long, we've been allowing these impact fee credits to only benefit the new developments that are paying the impact fees to improve their own developments so they can sell their homes or rent their apartments for even more money, while everyone else just keeps suffering longer and longer and longer. We're putting an end to that. I've been working very hard to get rid of impact fee credits, not out of spite, but out of just people who have been here deserve their roads to be fixed before new people start coming here. Impact fees are supposed to improve the overall community, not just be used self-servingly for your own neighborhood. So, someone has a comment. Oh, sorry, Joe, you did this, but you're next.
9 off 75th Street, or 9 off 75th Street, going towards Geraldson's area. You guys just redid that. Put a speed table in there, which was working really well. So they came back and they put another speed hump on top of the speed table on both sides. So now when you go across that, it's very abrupt. And even if like a truck goes across pulling a trailer, when a trailer hits it, it comes off the ground this far. Whoever designed that, I don't know where you got him from, but you need to send him back.
Yeah.
It needs to be smoothed out a little bit.
I haven't gotten an answer. I haven't asked. Admittedly, I haven't been down the road since those came on. But you're not the first person to mention it to me. Joe McClash mentioned it to me, and somebody else mentioned it to me.
They are really
so I'll follow up again. I've never gotten an answer, admittedly, but I have asked about it. But I'll re-ask.
If somebody's going to get hurt really bad.
Yeah. Because originally that was supposed to be a little roundabout thing.
Yeah.
Like but not a real roundabout, like one of the traffic calming roundabouts, not a real one. And then people came in and it's like, no, instead of a roundabout, let's have this table instead. And we're like, whatever.
But the table's fine, but it was what they put on top of the table.
Yeah, I didn't know we were doing that. That seems odd, but I have asked. I haven't laid eyes on it, but I've had Joe and one other person mention it to me, so I'll ask again.
Oh, George, I wanted to applaud you on the way that you're acting as chairman, because you're really managing the whole process. And that one meeting that went till 11 o'clock from 9 o'clock in the morning, it took me 2 days to catch up on my sleep. But what I wanted to ask you is, the entire board is doing a great job on rolling back some of these decisions that were not smart governing. The buffer zone, the impact fees, reworking the comp plan, and so forth. So today's discussion was about stormwater. Is there any discussion about putting the millage back to what it was so that we don't have to enact a stormwater fee? Because in my personal opinion, and I might be wrong, that millage reduction just before the election looked like a political move, and we lost $10 million towards our operating budget.
Sure. I think there's 2 parts. One, I voted no on that, which was frustrating. I made all the other motions to cut taxes, but I agreed that that was a bad time to do it. I begrudgingly, even though I was in the middle of a campaign, voted no on a tax cut and was risking that one. But there's always a chance of putting it back because every year we discuss the millage. We can do whatever we want. We can cut it this year. We can increase it even more than it was this year. I mean, the millage is a flexible number that once a year we get to set. Whether or not we move it, I don't know. It's at the mercy of the board, and I haven't seen the budget yet. It starts coming out around May. We have our meetings in June. And then we'll assess where we stand in terms of needs for services versus revenue coming in. There are some things potentially coming down the pipe or have come down that is going to make it very difficult for counties to lower millage anymore. For instance, there was just the amendment on last year's ballot, which indexed homestead now. So now every year that $50,000 home, or I guess 25,000, half of it, is indexed to inflation. So that number is going to keep getting higher and higher and higher, which is going to make tax assessed values lower and lower and lower. So even if you keep your millage the same, that's going to keep driving that thing down. That may not seem like much for one single house, but when you take that over a bunch of houses, then you consider that's compounding. So you take 3%, CPI, and then the next year is 3% on the 103%. The next year it's 3% on the 106 point something. It's going to start exacerbating problems. There's also affordable housing tax abatements that are part of Live Local that haven't really been seen yet. There's a couple of other homestead exceptions. It's going to be harder to cut them. What we do about it from a stormwater standpoint, there's a couple of options. One is just a straight up fee, which was discussed in 2020. That was discussed either on a trash bill or on taxes. Another one is the individual the taxes spread throughout based on where you live, the MTSUs that can be done. And then there's just taking a dedicated piece of a millage, honestly, which you don't even have to raise it to do that. Just like with our library. If you look on your tax bill, there's a portion of it that goes to library. There's a portion of it that's a little bit more well known, the 0.15 for environmental land. People voted on that. That's just a piece of your tax in there. You could take that. I've advocated for it from a housing standpoint. You could just take our existing millage and just say, we're going to vote now and say 0.05, 0.1, whatever, of this current millage. We're not raising anyone's taxes, but 0.1 of this mill going forward is dedicated towards stormwater and maintenance. And then when that money comes in, you take away the right of the board to be able to take that money and go buy pickleball courts and stuff with it. Once it's dedicated, it has to be dedicated. Like libraries, even if we start building up that library money, if that's part of the millage, we have to spend it on libraries. So you could do that without even adjusting the millage up again. You could just say, we're going to be a little more thoughtful with our money. We're going to be a little more careful with our budget. So in good faith, we're going to allocate a portion of our current millage to stormwater, which is going to give us less flexibility of general funds. So we have to be a little more thoughtful about staffing and how we spend.
You were asking some good questions of the, and I don't remember the gentleman's name, about clearing out the flows, the creeks and whatever. Will that number be presented before budget time so we know what the annual spend is?
I hope so. I can't promise you because I can't dictate staff's timing. I don't know what else they're working on. This board has gotten a little over its skis on setting unrealistic timetables for staff to a point where it's really stressing them out. It's like, I want this by next Tuesday. It's like, but it's a 2-month-long project. So I don't know their timing. They understand the situation with storms. They understand the situation with rainy season. Like I said, there are parts that we're already fixing now. We're not waiting to find that out. There's certain areas that flooded and certain areas that didn't. I'm a little less concerned about dealing with ditches out in the middle of nowhere where there's no residential areas and there's no real evacuation zones. If you're up way north, Piney Point kind of area, okay, we'll deal with that when we get around to it. It's not affecting anyone's life. Did you? But other areas like the Gamble Creek areas and all are actively being fixed now. We're not waiting to do that.
And last quick question, where are we at with the strategic plan? Because I attended that meeting and then I haven't seen anything else about, is it moving forward or is it in standstill or?
The intent was to hire a consultant and start working on it. I think they have like a 2-year timeline to do that. So, and that just was discussed 5 weeks ago. So I don't know the status of it. I mean, we have to do procurements and everything else, source people and interview people for consultants that are going to handle it. I haven't heard a word about it, but I trust it's still being moved forward. It was assigned to Stephanie Garrison to start working on it. She's also been setting up all these joint meetings for me. She's been setting up the Tallahassee trips in the meeting. She's had a lot on her plate, but it's on her plate to do it. So I haven't heard anything about it, but I also haven't heard we're not doing it. I mean, the whole board was in agreement we should work on it. All right. It's after 8 o'clock. So. All right. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.